everyone, this is Ella Aquarela. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a review of this Paul Rubens 100% cotton watercolor paper journal. I've seen this a lot online. It's been very popular. I featured it in a quarantine art supply haul that I did. I will put a link to that at the end of the video. And I really wanted to test it out. I haven't used it yet, so this is my first impressions. I'm going to be using the Pretty Excellent Watercolor 36 pan set, which I also featured in the quarantine art haul video, because I feel like these combination of these two products have been very popular lately, and I want to see how they work together. I'm also going to be using my Silver Black Velvet number 8 watercolor brush. I love this brush. Some clean water, some artist tape, a dish to mix colors in. And the reason why I'm not using the actual palette lid to mix, which is perfectly fine and you can do that, it's because I like to use ceramic and porcelain to mix. I just like the feel of it. It makes me happy. So I tend to always use a separate dish to mix. I rarely use the lids of my palettes. So you will see in most of my videos, I use separate dishes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this journal and show it to you. It's just gorgeous on the outside. It's kind of like a faux leather cover. It has the Paul Rubens brand in gold. It's really nicely designed, really pretty. When you open it, it's black kind of cardstock paper. And then you have your watercolor paper sheets. It seems to be double-sided, so it seems to be that you can use it on both sides. Each page has a perforated edge right here, so you can pull your artwork apart. So I think some of the features that make 100% cotton paper, especially artist grade paper, really good is that it can take a lot of water. It can take masking fluid. It can take a lot of layering, and it lifts when you need it to, and it doesn't lift when you don't need it to. So what I'm going to attempt to do is create a painting that uses really wet washes and some layering and masking to put this journal to the test. So let's get started. I'm going to be using as inspiration this picture that I took while I was on a trip to Japan a few years ago. It's a beautiful sunset, and I think landscape paintings make a great subject to do lots of wet washes and layering. So I already prepared my page. I put some tape around the edges. I used Pro Artist tape. I bought this at a local art store. I can try to find something similar on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description below. The reason why I bought this particular tape was that it's very thin. So very, very thin roll of artist tape. It's 1/4 of an inch. And the reason why I like this is because when I'm working on small sketchbooks like this, or like just smaller sizes of paper, I don't like to use the thick tape because it will take up too much real estate from my edge, or some of the edge will hang off, and I don't like it. So I like to buy that really thin tape so I can use it for these smaller size paintings. Now I'm going to be using 3 colors from this set. I'm going to be using Cad Yellow, which is this color over here, Vermilion, and a Payne's Gray. It is labeled as Payne's Gray in this set, but it's looks like more like an indigo color. It's not exactly the same type of Payne's Gray that I'm used to seeing in other sets, so they might have mislabeled it. Now this set doesn't provide pigment numbers, so I wouldn't know, right? We wouldn't know unless the company provides pigment numbers. The reason why I picked these 3 colors is because they make a nice primary triad and will give me the mixes that I need to get the colors on that painting. I want to mix a nice neutral purplish gray which I can get from the vermilion and this Payne's Gray / indigo, and a nice orange that I can get from mixing the vermilion and the cat yellow. So that's the reason why I picked those 3 colors. Now I moved some of these colors already to my mixing plate because I wanted to have the mixes ready in the interest of time. So I literally just moved some of the paint here. I used a dropper of water to, get the mixes to the right consistency that I want. This is just a bottle of like eye drops that I used up, and I put water in there. For the masking, I masked the sun and some of the reflections in the water. I used Jack Richardson liquid mask. This is my favorite mask. I've used other masks and I haven't had success with them, so that's the one that I like the most. Now, I'm gonna put a few layers on this painting. So I'm gonna start with the first layer. I'm actually gonna wet the page. I wanna make it really wet because I want the paint to flow. I'm gonna move the paint over here. I wanna try to see if this paper buckles or not, and see how the paint moves on the paper. So I'm gonna mix, maybe I'll put this over here. I'm gonna mix a little bit of this yellow with this red to get kind of this orangey color that I have in the sky. And I'm gonna paint it in. I made a line here just to, like a line for the horizon, just to keep track of where my horizon is. And one thing that is happening here is that this is not the best dish to mix big puddles. I have other dishes, so I should have probably used different dishes, but it's okay. Because the water kind of goes all over the place. And this is just a really cheap plate from IKEA that I got, and I got it to eat actually off of, but I realized it is not very good quality for a food plate, so I decided to use it for painting instead. I would never use a plate that I would intend to use again to eat for painting, by the way. Paints have all kinds of chemicals, so please be safe and don't use anything that you're planning to use in your kitchen for painting. So one of the things that I wanted to see with this paint set was also whether this paper dries too fast, because that happens sometimes on lower quality paper. And when it dries too fast, then it's hard to get those nice wet on wet washes that are even, because you get blooms, you get uneven color. So far, so good. The paper has remained pretty wet. I don't know if you can see the sheen is still pretty wet, so it's looking good. Happy about that. I'm just gonna put a little bit more paint on the sides here. Give some contrast. So far, I'm really liking the way this paper is behaving. It feels just like any other good quality watercolor 100% cotton paper. I'm just tilting my page to give the paint an opportunity to move around. Now I do notice that there's some pooling here of paint, so I'm gonna take my paper towel and just wipe that off to avoid any back runs. to make sure that my wash is nice and pretty like I want it to be. Now that this layer is dry, I'm gonna do the next layer. I actually had to put some clips here, if you notice, just because the paper started buckling a little bit. This is 140-pound paper, so that is normal. It's not buckling an extreme amount. It's actually just buckling a little bit. So it's to be expected that this would buckle a bit. So I'm just adding clean water to this. If you notice, the bottom layer, I'm hoping that it's not going to be disturbed by me adding another layer, right? Because we want this to be able to take many layers. So I'm going to put a little bit more of the same paint. I just want this to be a little bit more vibrant. The sky, that is. And I'm going to do a similar washes to what I did in the first wash. I just wanted to make it more vibrant. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to come back when it's dry so you can see the next layer. The second layer is dry. That second layer layered really well. It didn't disturb the bottom layer. It really did exactly what I wanted it to do. Super happy about it. So now we're going to start painting the mountains. I'm going to make a really light kind of brownish gray color to paint the furthest away mountain, which I believe starts right around here. So this is in the distance, so I want this to be a lighter color, more faint than the mountains that are going to be in the foreground. And I feel like because this paper kind of keeps very evenly wet, I can drop in color while this is still wet, because I feel like it's definitely going to evenly distribute. So I don't feel like, I'm going to mess up. Good paper helps you rather than hinders you to, get good work. Feel like cheaper paper that is not 100% cotton, especially, you can do great work with it, and some people do amazing work, but you need to be able to learn how to work with its limitations. This paper, I feel like it helps you rather than hinders you. So I'm going to dry that and come back for the next layer. Now in this next layer, I want things to start getting progressively darker. So there's a mountain, kind of goes in front of this one. And I want that to be darker than the mountain that I just painted in the back. All right. I might just drop in a little bit of blue around here to give it some interest. I like when the colors mix on the paper. It just makes it look so much more interesting. And I'm just gonna tilt this, sorry you can see that, to make the paint move a little bit. And I actually want to try something. Should have tried it with the layer in the back, but I'm gonna try to use some clear water and kind of touch the edge of this a little bit. I want to give the impression that there's some either clouds there or maybe some foliage peeking out, so that that edge is not as sharp as the other edges. Just hope I don't mess it up. There we go. That's interesting. I kind of like that. Just gonna dab over here. All right, so I'm gonna have this layer dry and I'll come back with the next. The next layer is the mountain that's closest to us. So that should be even darker than the other mountains. So I mixed all three colors to get this kind of dark, warm gray color. And that mountain starts all the way over here. Maybe if you want to see the reference photo, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post it on my Instagram. I'm gonna put my link to my Instagram, so you can look at the reference painting. So look for the date of this video and then go to my Instagram and look for around that same date. And then you can see the reference picture, because I can't fit it in the frame while I'm painting. It's hard to fit everything, so that you can see what I'm doing and you can see the painting. So I really like how this is coming along. It's looking really good. Just giving it a few more touches here. I want to give the impression that there's some foliage, so I might do the same thing I did with this side, although I'm gonna try to see if I can do it more in a controlled way. I literally just want to give the impression that there's some really like tree branches or some sort of foliage peeking from this mountain on the top. So as I just literally touch my wet brush, not super wet, but I dabbed it on a paper towel. Hope you can see how the paint starts to bleed. If you can see right there how the paint starts to bleed up, that kind of gives the impression of that's something happening there, whether it's trees or grasses or whatever it is. It gives it a little bit of interest. Okay, I like that. I'm going to dry that layer, and then I'm going to work on the foreground in the water. Now once more, I'm going to wet a big area of the painting. And as you can tell, the paint below is not lifting, which is great. I'm going to take some of this color that I used for the mountain that was in front to just paint some water reflections here, kind of shadow areas. The water. And now here I have a hard edge because I didn't wet this part as well. I'm just gonna try to blend that in. Which looks really good. Looking good. Just gonna add a bit more reflections here for this mountain. kind of feel like so I'm going to try to lift a little bit. I feel like I covered too much of this part. So you can see I can lift that layer that I'm just working on, but it's not lifting the bottom layer, which is a great quality that this paper has. Now I'm going to use a rubber cement pickup to lift. And sorry if my camera is moving. And the masking is lifting really well. It's not tearing the paper, and it's removing really cleanly, so that's great. That is not always the case, I find. It also depends what masking you're using, but I've had papers that the masking just fuses to the paper and refuses to come out. So that's looking really good. Now I'm gonna put the finishing touches on this painting. I'm gonna grab some of that cadmium yellow, a clean version of that, because I mixed it a lot in the other parts of the painting. I'm just gonna paint this sun in here, like a light yellow. And I'm also going to paint this reflection, which is actually the reflection of the sun on the water. All right, that's it for this simple landscape. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm going to remove the masking tape. And that's it. That's the finished painting. The paper did tear when I peeled some of the tape on this side. So maybe if you buy this, be careful to maybe blow out the tape, make it hot with a blow dryer before peeling it off. That helps to prevent this type of thing. You can't tell too much, it's fine. But I'm very happy with this paper. I mean, it layered amazingly. Glazes were wonderful. I was able to use masking with no problem. I was able to do washes really wet on wet with a lot of water, and it held up really, really well. Given the price for this, I mean, it was $16.99 I think when I bought it. So definitely the prices on Amazon vary. That's US dollars, by the way. So for less than $20, getting 100% cotton watercolor sketchbook of this quality is very rare. So I have to say, this is a steal. Highly recommend. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click on the subscribe button below. And I hope to see you in my next video. Take care.